I'm Devin.
I'm George, and this is the 27th appointment with Medicinema, your healthy dose of film.
Today we talk about the topic of film preservation, with two films which took decades to get U.S. releases. First, the 1973 George A. Romero film, The Amusement Park, and then the 2004 film The Birthday by Eugene O'Meara. Before that, however, let's talk about some recent movie discoveries.
So, I recently watched the 2016 released documentary David Lynch, The Art Life. The film about the late great director approaches him in a very interesting way. It focuses on his early life leading up to his first film and all the art he made before that, whilst we see him create the sort of paintings and art he made after his last film. It is a very fascinating structure that really allows his thoughts to breathe and, in an odd way, gives us more answers than him talking about his movie directly ever would. It's really a documentary that felt worthy for this incredibly elusive subject.
That's a good descriptor for him. David Lynch is so hit or miss for me, personally, but you can't deny that as a human being, he was a powerful figure and he was an enigma and he was just a real strange cat, and I'm all about that anyways. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's no second person like him in film history. He's really a unique oddball in the midst of all of the things happening in Hollywood. No matter like just looking at his movies, looking at his general art, or the little art performance pieces kind of things he did, like the
hmm
weather report series
oh my
during the
god,
COVID lockdown. Or, there's infamous stories like the whole Academy Award campaign with him just sitting on a sidewalk in Hollywood with a cow.
it's so funny. I wasn't entirely convinced at first that the weather thing wasn't just him being old. He
Maybe
was like 60 when he did that or something, right?
older, like
Oh my
75 or something,
god,
right?
yeah, that sounds like something a 75-year-old do with the access to a camera and the internet.
Like since his death, obviously a ton of people have talked about him and how he influenced their work or what he meant to them. And I heard several critics who basically followed those weather reports as like a daily thing in their lives during COVID. And it really helped them to have like this anchor of weird weather reports of what's going on in Lynch's life right now. So it definitely did help some people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's a very influential figure.
For sure. And yeah, as I said, the way this movie approaches it, with him never wanting to talk about his films really, anyways, it is really interesting to see him just generally talk about the way he approaches art, whilst he only talks about his paintings. But you can clearly draw conclusions from that and apply it to the films he made. So in a way, they got him to talk about his movies without him talking about his movies, which is, I think, the closest we'll get to David Lynch answering questions of what it all means.
That's super funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could see him being very I don't know about like a lot about the way he, behaves other than the stunts he performed, if you want to call him like that, right? But
Mhm.
he seems like a locked down individual about his art, I bet.
Yeah. Yeah, he totally was.
And then I do know, like we were talking about a little before the recording, that there's a documentary about him and his obsession with Wizard of Oz. So I definitely have I want to know about that because I'm about the Wizard of Oz.
Mm.
You can't be a bad person if you love the Wizard of Oz. That's just a law.
What's something you recently discovered, Devin?
Yeah. So recently, I saw the 2024 body horror Grafted. It's the directorial debut of Sasha Rainbow, as well as the acting debut of all three of its lead actors, Joanna Sun, Jess Hong, and Eden Hart. The film follows a young Chinese student who, while living with a host family and attending college in New Zealand, attempts to complete her late father's wild medical experiments. Anyone who enjoyed The Substance should absolutely see this film. It explores really similar themes while maintaining its own unique identity. The body horror effects here absolutely excellent, and the three lead actors just really shine. Really underrated. Can't believe that. It's definitely a movie that I would suggest to any body horror fan.
Interesting. Yeah, this totally wasn't on my radar at all. Like I've never heard about this before. Yeah.
It's not on anyone's radar, and I've been, amongst our friend circles and stuff, I've been pumping it, and I've gotten, I think, like 2 or 3 people to see it, and each person has just been like, where the fuck is this? Like, why is this not talked about at all?" I've heard it literally, some people that I've already seen it, it's like, this is an absolute companion piece to the Substance. I definitely suggest you see it. Everybody should see it.
I already like the poster a lot. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful picture. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out soon. But for now, I guess that brings us to our first movie.
Yeah.
Warning: the following program contains spoilers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
The amusement park, for the longest part of its existence, was considered a lost film by George A. Romero. It was shot as a rent for hire documentary about elderly people for the Lutheran Service Society of Western Pennsylvania. And after a single screening at the New York Film Festival in 1975, was shelved and forgotten for 48 years, when a copy was rediscovered and restored by the Indie Collective. The story follows an elderly man who, after ignoring the plea of another broken man in a mysterious white room, energetically ventures out into an amusement park. He then continues to constantly get overwhelmed, get hurt and ignored by people around him, mistreated, and just generally has an awful day. By the end, he returns to the mysterious room, revealing that he was the broken man who will plead to not go outside, completing what turns out to be a looped story. Devyn, you told me about this. I assume you have seen this before, right?
Yeah, I have seen this before. I saw this the day you could watch it on VOD, on video release. I had been waiting for this movie since it was announced that it was found. It was one of the few movies that I really, really followed its release, you know. Um,
Mhm.
I really wanted to see this. George A. Romero is a really interesting director because he's so influential. His zombie movies are so influential. And then outside of his zombie movies, like, I'm not actually that much of a fan of his work. So I was really, this was touted as this horror film. So I really was really interested to see where that would go and why, why is it banned or whatever. What did you think about this? This is your first time ever seeing this.
Yeah, I am not the biggest George A. Romero fan in the first place. Like, I have only seen even like two other films before this, Night of the Living Dead and his original Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
Like, I appreciate them a lot, particularly like Night of the Living Dead obviously started this whole thing. The amount of influence it has is like almost indescribable. But as just movie watching experiences, I wasn't too into them, neither of them. This one is my favorite George A. Romero now. I really enjoyed this. This is very much up my alley. It's very surprising, positive experience, honestly. Great, great movie.
I am fairly surprised, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of thought you were gonna hate this.
That's interesting. Before we go deeper into the film itself, I want to give like a glimpse and very short overview on like the history of film preservation. For a long time, films were basically only preserved if the studio that made it had huge storage for them. Even then, they might have only saved the more successful ones for re releases. With films being flammable, there were even some instances of whole storages burning down and taking a whole lot of film history with them. Furthermore, film wasn't really regarded as art by the wider public for a long time. most people just saw in it a kind of slop and entertainment for the masses compared to quote unquote actual art forms like opera or painting, etc. This really started to change more so in the 1950s when French film critics and later themselves notable filmmakers Jean-Luc Godard and François Truffaut started to break down and analyze film deeper. This is also where the author theory dates back to an essay by Truffaut. And pretty much the next really big step for film preservation only came with the VHS in the 1970s, when studios suddenly had like a financial incentive to actually preserve them. I'll go further into a bit of film preservation's history with two specific stories later on, but I thought for now it would be interesting to have like a starting point.
Yeah, I don't really have much immediately to go off of film preservation. I do want to get back to the movie a little bit. I know that a friend of ours really likes this movie, and he is not American. So it made me really interested to wonder, like, how Europeans in general or Austrians in general treat their elderly, because that's what this movie is really about, is about elderly treatment. And I know that in, a lot of ways it can be really universal how people treat elderly people. But what does elderly care look like in Austria?
There's different kind of systems. It's rare nowadays that the elderly will be like taken care of by the family itself.
Yeah.
Just like general, capitalism rarely allows it. Yeah, it's either that you get like, depending on how much help they need, they might still live at home, do their own thing, and like caretaker will come by and visit them maybe once a day, bring a meal or something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's worse, then there's like caretakers who basically live with them. Or there's also, just elderly homes. I don't think it's too much of a difference, honestly.
Yeah, that's about the same. So do you feel like how elderly people are treated is similar to the analogies made in this movie in Austria?
I think so, yeah. I
That
think
sucks.
it feels over the top, obviously, but there's a grain of truth to all of the little things I saw here.
That's
Is how I would put it.
interesting. Here, I would not even feel like it's over the top, actually. Here, it feels very just like clearly cut and paste from reality things. Like almost all the things that happen in this movie are things that happen all the time, every day. But yeah, so I just wondered about that, like, because I had this golden pedestal idea that Austrians are not mean to their elderly or don't treat them like shit or whatever, but I guess not.
Yeah, sadly. Sadly, I can't claim we're perfect.
Oh no.
Who would have expected, looking at history of Austria, that Austrians aren't perfect?
It's like, I'm so sorry you couldn't claim that you guys were perfect. That didn't work out for the last guy who did, so maybe it's better that we don't try to do that.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's fucking funny. This movie, it opens really unconventionally because it opens, with like the lead actor basically telling you, what this kind of is or whatever, right?
I even wrote down a note including that little setup. Like right at the end of his speech, I paused and wrote down his last quote: "Remember, as you watch this film, one day you will be old."
Yeah.
And wrote that this feels unexpectedly sincere and serious, and that I expect the rug being pulled away under my feet any minute now. And literally the second I unpaused it, we're in this abstract white room scene. And I was like, okay, yeah, there it is. Because I was like, this can't just be a normal, straightforward kind of story. This wouldn't have been lost and banned and whatever. Something has to turn odd. any minute now, and it exactly happens the moment I unpaused.
It's great.
I have another quote, like just a minute later, anything. There's nothing outside, is one thing he says to him in the room. And immediately upon going outside, it's contrasted with these tons of people, colors all around, sounds, music, everything being over the top and overstimulating. And I already thought that's an interesting way to approach this, as like not calling it overwhelming, not calling it overstimulating, but calling it there's nothing outside. It's an interesting way to look at it.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember if by the end of the movie, if there's less visual clutter, because I know that there's a lot of empty open scenes, like, and he's laying on the ground near the end and stuff, and you're not like everybody's gone. There's a scene where like literally like it's representing that nobody would help him and that everybody's left him in his life or whatever, right? And everybody's just gone. But I think like even all the balloons and all of like the extra little things at the park are kind of gone too with that scene. So it's kind of interesting that I think actually there is less visual clutter as the movie continues on.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like it shows both sides of like either he's overwhelmed with the situation because too many things are going on, or he will be left behind because no one pays attention to him, no one wants to offer their time to him. So he's laying there on the ground all alone, which is kind of, I feel like that a pretty good point to be made.
Just in general, of like how we treat the elderly, of leaving them alone. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, either in stressful situations or leaving them alone in underwhelming situations. It kind of goes both ways.
Well, like I said, he comes out. I don't remember if he comes out or what happens, but he's not. He doesn't start on the ground, and he like looks around and everybody's just gone. And I kind of took that as like that
Mhm.
moment when you get old and you realize that like all your kids are gone and all your blah blah blahs are gone, and like now all your friends are gone, and now you're just alone all the time.
Yeah, totally.
My great grandmother, I lived with her as a kid. It's like a 9 to 8, 9 year old or whatever. And then also again later when
Mhm.
I was like probably 15 or no, probably like 17. And she was very, very old, When I was like 17, she was in her 80s or 90s or something. And that's something she fought with a lot,
Mhm.
was just the endless loneliness. Just like nobody talked to her, nobody called her anymore. Like, keep in mind, like I loved my grandma, but she was a cantankerous old bitch. Like she was not nice to people at all.
Mhm.
And there's a reason why so many people just didn't talk to her anymore. I saw that firsthand, that loneliness, and it's terrifying. And the movie does a really beautiful job of illustrating that terror.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, is that too much? Is that too heavy?
No, 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 no. Like the movie asks for such heavy discussion.
Yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah,
really
yeah.
no way around handling it this way. It's yeah. It just makes me think a lot.
About your own family and things like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet. Do you have surviving grandparents?
Yes, both my grandmothers are still
Nice,
alive.
nice. Are they? How old are they? Ish.
They are in their like mid 70s.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah, and both still living at home.
Yeah.
Both have like a caretaker that sometimes visits them. I think like twice a week or something. So for the most part, they still do their own stuff. They just have a little bit of help. Still active and
That's
kicking.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have both my grandmothers are still alive, and
nice.
one is pretty active, and she still does a lot of things. She like raises dogs basically, She has a lot of dogs. She's a dog lady. And then my other grandmother just bought a canoe, and she spends a lot of time canoeing and trying to learn to paddleboard. She like hit every zip line in our state. a couple years ago or something like that. She goes camping every year. And
Yeah,
then
your grandmother sounds awesome.
she's a pretty cool lady. And then my other great grandmother is also actually still alive. And she's 90 something at least for sure. she's an old lady. She still smokes like a pack a day, I think, or whatever. Just she's a not quite cantankerous old lady like the other one was, but she's like a naughty old lady. We once sat fireside, all of us at a family reunion, and people are telling jokes. And while she's smoking a cigarette, she's like, I once got asked if I smoke after sex. And she lifted up her leg and goes, I've never checked. Fucking Christ, Grandma. The same reunion, I brought a girl over and she had a shirt that said Weed California on it. And my grandma's just sitting there staring at her. And the girl goes, oh, sorry, and like pulls her shirt out so that like my grandma can read the words, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, oh, honey, I was just looking at your tits. Grandma, come on.
Man, that's so funny. Yeah, both my grandmas can be funny, not in such a sexual way, but they will like make fun of my dad and stuff like that. Like
Oh,
when we're
yeah.
just sitting there at a family reunion, kind of eating a meal together, it will just all of the sudden, unexpectedly, on either side of the family, it's always the grandma. She will just I can't even give an example, but she will just give the most out of nowhere quip and just have a really good pun or something and make fun of one of the family members. And no
Okay.
one ever sees it coming, and everyone's just always like looking at them shocked before everyone bursts out laughing. Like it's very specific about these two.
Mhm. And we forget, we forget that these elderly people, these almost towering figures of our lives, right? Who are these
Mhm.
these important characters of our lives and shit, right? That they were just people, just like us, right? And the same thing goes for because we forget that, but we have this attachment to our grandparents, whatever. We don't have that attachment to some other random old person. So I think a lot of people just forget that about them, that they were also people like us that made dirty jokes and that, it's easy for people
Yeah,
to forget, you know?
yeah, for sure.
Do you guys also have I'm guessing that a lot of this I just imagine is purely universal the more I think about
Just like in a general way, I could relate pretty much all the scenes happening here to something happening in the real world. Like, obviously, these are a lot of metaphors. Like, there's the incredible bumper card scene relating to driver's licenses, and with the one witness wearing glasses and not having them on, and the general, people not believing the elderly people compared to the younger person, the younger driver, despite them being in the right, just due to ageism and stuff like that. Like all of that is pretty much universal, I'd say. Like I could totally relate to the scenes here as well. I find a little note on the bumper card scene actually. That might have been my favorite sequence in the whole movie. Obviously, like there have been quite a few media portrayals of this whole license issue and how, it affects the people around them, and just taking it away from them doesn't really solve anything because then you need people to drive them around all the time. But I've never seen it pulled off this funny and at the same time compassionate for the elderly people's side. Like I have seen other funny portrayals of it, but usually the elderly are the butt of the joke. They are the, unreliable driver who just messed things up and definitely shouldn't be driving anymore. whilst here they are in the right. It's the circumstances and the ageism that is the problem to them, not their age or their ability to drive in that moment. And I thought that was a really interesting way to approach such a scene. It's very compassionate, and it still showed all the issues with driver's license and with the way we look at elderly drivers.
Perfect. I was really good with that. You called it a metaphor, the act of them doing the whole bumper cart thing, right? Not quite the right term. It's almost an allegory, but also not quite the right term.
Yeah.
Don't think there's really a good term for what they're doing. Because in the movie, they're really just reenacting. It's really what it is. There's reenacting things, but in like a vignette form.
Yeah.
You know? This movie almost feels like a series of vignettes.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is funny because a common thing at old time carnivals and amusement parks was Nickelodeons, which just showed vignettes. Anyways, that's a weird connection to make. What do you think about the makeup design in this movie? This is the guy who made zombies, you know?
I didn't think too much of it. Like, it didn't distract me at all. It didn't stand out to me as, oh yeah, this is done incredibly well. It's very simple, but pretty effective. Like, I love the simplicity of that, of seeing the bandage early on his elderly form, I guess, on his broken down form.
Yeah.
It really fooled me, actually. Like,
I was
it
going to ask that next, yeah.
It's simple, but it's effective enough together with the performance that it totally fooled me. I didn't recognize it's the same actor in the beginning 2 times. And only like halfway through the film, when he got the bandage, I recognized, oh my god, it's him. He is becoming this person.
I'll do you one better. He fooled me 3 times.
Oh yeah, the intro and outro guy.
The intro is the same.
Yeah,
dude.
I didn't recognize. Yeah,
it's interesting.
You're right.
Yeah, when it goes to the intro and then suddenly it's the movie, I was like, all right, who's this guy? And then later I was like, oh, wait, that's the same dude. When the intro started, I was like, who's this Orson Welles knockoff?
He does look a bit like Orson Welles. I wish.
Yeah, that old Orson Welles, you know, like he's gonna walk up and try to sell me wine really drunkenly.
Yeah, gonna tell you about how the first 60 minutes of this film will not be a lie.
Yeah, exactly. It's F is for fake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally how F is for fake starts. It's super fun.
Just a little thinner here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also like the general idea behind the bandage of, you know, it's a representation of wrong treatment. You know, it's a super simple one, but he clearly tells them, no, I need more. I'm hurt. Like, I need help. Please help me. And they, no, you already got a bandage. You're good.
Yeah. So do you have...
That was so good.
Okay, first off, sometimes, you know, a product will be so successful that the name of the product kind of takes over for the actual product it is. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So in America, a big one is Band-Aid. Band-Aid brand is the brand that makes bandages, like the little tiny ones, you know, with the pink edges and the white center or whatever, that like is the classic image of a bandage. There's a classic phrase in English that says to put a Band-Aid on it means to just hide the problem and push it away. So there's an analogy there that they're just putting a Band-Aid on him and they literally just put it on and push him away.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that that's an actual say, but that totally makes sense. And yeah, that's what I got from it. Like, even without being aware of that, they portrayed it clear enough that you get that kind of messaging. I just wrote down one note from the restaurant. I don't know if anything else in the film was like that, and it confused me a bit. The size of things didn't add up. Like, the waiter at some points had a giant menu card, and then they cut and they had a small one, like a regular sized one. At one point, when he takes the order, he has this enormous pencil in his hand. Like, that's almost the size of 2 fists. You know, it's like big pencil for no reason. I couldn't figure out what exactly that meant, honestly. It confused me a bit.
I have a theory on this. I'm just looking at the pictures real quick of the restaurant. You're talking about like when he's eating outside, right?
Yes.
And he's like watching the other guy eat, and like he's not getting served, but the other guy is.
I can't remember
And
that.
he
Like I
finally gets
specific.
served,
Yeah, I remember the scene where he gets served.
and he finally gets served, and he ends up like sharing it with the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take note of that at all. My focus was on him watching the other guy get served and how the other guy basically gets treated really, really nice, but he gets ignored because he's an old guy or whatever, right?
Mm.
I didn't even think about them trying to hand him a different menu, right? He's just watching the other guy be treated like a king, literally be waited on hand and foot. They're like giving him the best food. They're putting a wrap, like a napkin around his neck, and they're like lighting candles for him at his table and shit. He gets served
Mm.
first. He's being a king, while he's just being treated like the little guy, maybe even like a child, if you would. I don't know if if Austrian restaurants do this, but in America, a lot of restaurants will have a separate menu for people over 50 if they want to use it, but like it exists.
Oh, really? Like one
It's like the
with
senior
bigger
menu.
letters or anything, or just like a different kind of
No,
menus?
it's usually just like half orders of other stuff. And then like depending on where you go, like if you go to like a diner type of restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Burgers, fries, chicken, things like that, right? That's where you get like the people like the stereotype of like liver and onions. Like they'll sell that. Um
Mm-hmm.
they'll just sell like what's considered old people food.
That's funny.
Salisbury steak is an old people food in America. We do eat Salisbury steak. And then like chipped beef or whatever is like an old people kind of food.
Interesting. No, I can't really think of anything like that. Like not even the menus, but I can't even think of a stereotypical old people food in Austria, honestly. Like
That's
the
insane.
menu kind of thing exists for children. Like there's
Yeah,
specific
we have that
children's
too. Yep.
menus with smaller portion sizes and kind of stereotypical, just
Chicken
fries and
nuggets.
chicken nuggets and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, spaghetti.
It's
But
so funny. It's
but I
universal.
can't really think of a like. I guess sure there's some foods that I would like if I saw it, I would more think of yeah, my grandmother would eat that. And there is like specific candy that I can think of that I instantly relate to. Yeah, this is candy that like a grandma gives to to the kids, and no like person of our age would buy that. Like that I can think of, but not really like an actual meal type of thing.
That's wild.
I'm sure in elderly homes they will look at, the nutritional value and stuff like that and be like, yeah, maybe this fat kind of thing it's not good for their health, so they will make it healthier and stuff like that. But I don't really consider that like oh yeah, it's clearly an elderly food or anything.
That's wild. That's cool though, I guess, I'm just looking at two one is kind of a nice restaurant and one is like a diner, and I'm looking at their senior menus.
Mm-hmm.
They both feature liver. One's like baby liver and onions, and the other one is like baby beef liver and onions. Uh, they both feature chopped steaks. They both feature baked meatloaf, fried chicken. They both feature spaghetti, also with the little kid plate. It's like little kid food, but a bigger portion, but not as big as like a normal portion.
That's super funny.
Yeah, weird. But I think more the point that the movie's trying to make is that we're watching that other guy be treated so greatly, and he feels small.
Mhm.
He feels so small about all of it.
Around the 28-minute mark is when it all goes batshit crazy. It's the sequence where the young couple looks into the future.
Oh yeah,
That sequence, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I loved it. It's wild. It's wild. Didn't see it coming. Totally escalated there.
Yeah, it's a good sequence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how like somewhere along the lines, some comic book artist decided that like when something is stinky, you have to draw lines that are wiggly that move away from the object.
Yeah.
And every artist since all over the world has been like, no, that's perfect. I'm going to use that. That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the shimmering, like wavy screen effect for going into the past or going into a premonition or going is like an absolute standard right now.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't do that. It just cuts to that.
Yeah.
It just is like, look into the ball. And then suddenly, I get it. I know what's happening after 10 seconds or whatever, but it's jarring, kind of. It's not the best transition as far as a film goes.
Yeah. Just like a phase transition or something simple like that would have worked. Yeah.
anything, anything just kind of dreamlike, you know?
Mm-hmm. Just
Sometimes they do that thing where like the borders around everything have that like Gaussian blur across
yeah,
it or
yeah.
whatever.
I was
so
about to say like
gives it a
give
dreamy
it a
effect.
blur transition kind of thing. Yeah.
But I do like that scene. I just hate the transition to and out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it belongs in the rest of the movie to me. There's something to talk about probably with like when he gets yelled at for like talking to the children. I don't know, and that might be a whole can of worms because it sucks.
Yeah.
But like it's also an understandable thing in a
Yeah.
way, and like it is hard for people who genuinely like children, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are meant to interact with children,
Yeah.
right? The way that women can. Even as men become older and they have their own children, they have their own grandchildren, and both of them leave the nest, they will have that struggle, right?
For sure. For sure.
My grandfather ran a fun house where people could do all kinds of weird shit and stuff. And he let kids have free admission and things like that. And he got death threats constantly from people. Like, I don't know, man. He used to ride around on his bicycle blowing bubbles in ghetto neighborhoods. And he would dress up as Santa Claus in the middle of July, in the middle of like the summer, and like blow bubbles on the side of the road and stuff. He did a lot of performance art. He just wanted to be like an artsy, performative, hippie ass clown. And a lot of that involves like entertaining and being around children and teaching children. You know, I wouldn't put it past him to like read stories at library time type shit. And people fucking hated that. People harassed the shit out of him for it. Just a sad state. And, you know, you see that here in this movie with this. But a quick glimpse, you know. But it's a shitty thing to see. But it also, you know,
It is understandable where it comes from.
I
Yeah.
get people's fears. Yeah. Yeah, I see people's fears. As a dad, I totally see people's fears.
Yeah, which is a little bit paradoxical. Like the whole stranger danger thing has been like, from a statistics stance, that's by far not the biggest risk of.
It's in your family usually,
Yeah.
people you know, and
Yeah, yeah. But you know, it's an understandable fear, and you get where it comes from. The scene where he finds that little girl with the book and he reads the Three Little Pigs story. It kind of even, relates to that with him trying to interact with children. Even though I look at it more so as an analogy of the few times he gets to spend with his grandchildren. Like, I didn't look at it as a random, this is just a kid he doesn't know.
No, it's his grandchildren, yeah, for sure.
This comes right after a scene that just really over time built up this overstimulation more and more. Like the sound design right before that is insane. It's super disorienting camera moves. It's the weirdest point of views. It even reminded me of the more experimental Gaspar Noé stuff, like Lux Eterna. Just done decades earlier. And then we finally have this peaceful moment he sits down on the grass, not a lot of people around him. It's kind of quiet and relaxed. He gets to spend this beautiful moment with this little girl, and it gets cut so short. It's brutal, and it's brutal to see like the way it relates and to think back on memories where you knew you know, visiting your grandparents, you had like a certain amount of time and then you had to go, and thinking about them just being left behind alone again afterwards, after just this short moment of having someone to interact with, someone to spend time with you really enjoy. It it's it hurts. Really
Yeah.
hurts. I felt bad afterwards that I hadn't visited my grandparents in a while. I'm gonna visit them this weekend now.
Ah, that's good. That's really nice. I moved to be closer to one of my grandparents. I would like to move to be closer to the other one. I don't know if she listens to this, but you move too much. My other grandmother literally moves almost every 2 to 3 years. So it would have been futile to try to move closer to her. She would have just moved away in 3 years. Um,
You have a cool grandma.
I do. I think you have cool grandmas. Um, we had a cool grandpa too. Two cool grandpas. The one, like I said, is that guy, and the other one,
Mhm.
once spent like 2 summers doing acid in the desert, trying to learn how to summon demons. And like painting
I
devils and
don't have
shit.
well stories like that from my grandparents.
I mean, yeah. My family is something else for sure.
I have like a little thing I wrote down by the end. Like my bigger thought was as for the history of this film and how it was probably received by the people it was made for.
Hilarious.
Like thinking of it, what this movie is, it kind of feels like a failed assignment for what it was supposed to be. I'm unsure who in the year 1973 would have been the target audience for this, or just like as an art piece, which it also clearly is. It's still horrible to keep this from the world since it already existed. You know, it wasn't like he pitched this to them and they were like, no, this is too weird. We won't fund this. They already paid for it. It's already finished. It's a travesty that it wasn't released earlier. But the target audience thing made me think, because I, as a film nerd who loves odd movies in the year 2025, feel like I am the target audience. And it, as I already mentioned, it kind of worked as intended now. It made me think about all these issues. It made me want to visit my grandparents more frequently. It immediately made me think of like that Back to the Future quote. Seems like you're not ready for this, but your kids are gonna love it.
It's good, yeah.
So, in an odd way, the history of this film almost makes sense. It seems more fitting to release such an out there movie nowadays. And it's almost as if it was meant for this generation. It's like I would probably wouldn't have watched a straightforward documentary about getting old, you know. But I watched this and it's super unique. I really enjoyed it and it fulfilled all of its goals, just like 5 decades later.
I want to clarify a few things really quick. The people who commissioned it, the Lutheran Service Society of Western Pennsylvania, they actually did use it more than a few times to show people as an educational film.
Okay.
I don't necessarily actually think that they had a huge problem with it. What the problem was is that it premiered 2 years after it was made at the 1975 American Film Festival in New York City, and it just couldn't find a distributor there. So even the people that even film people who saw it there were like, nah.
Yeah, it's a super unique piece of art.
Yeah. So it really wasn't as shelved as I guess the film service, the Lutheran service, where they didn't release it to anybody for a long time because I think they just didn't think it was worth it.
It's interesting that it was really a thing of being too much ahead of its time, kind of, and people not seeing the vision. And now it works. What an odd little unique piece of film history.
It really, really is.
Shout out to Indie Collect Restorations.
Yeah. Did a really good thing. That was supervised by, I'm gonna fucking really ruin this, Dos Shero or Dos Rocher Romero. I think it's like his kid or something. But it looks like he got to see, George A. Romero got to see it. He got to see the 4K version right before he died.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you think this is his best work?
I have seen only 3 George A. Romero films now.
That's right. That's right. That's what you said.
Of
That's right.
those 3, to me it is. But even that is like difficult to say because despite me not enjoying the experience of the Night of the Living Dead as much as I'd like to, it's still such an influential film that it's kind of tough to, scale how good I think this movie
Yeah.
is. But yeah, it's the one I rated the highest, yes. I wanted to bring up my second little history piece about film preservation.
Okay, go for it.
Specifically, I wanted to talk about lost female film history. As the British film critic Helen O'Hara wrote in her book Women vs. Hollywood: The Fall and Rise of Women in Film, female directors and minority group directors are like particularly susceptible to their films getting lost throughout time. A good example for this is Alice Guy Blanche. Have you heard of her?
I have not heard of her, no.
Alice Guy Blanche was a French woman that way too few people know about, but was incredibly important to film history. She made her first film in 1896, less than a year after the Lumiere brothers invented the cinematograph. Her first film, The Cabbage Fairy, is a potential candidate for first narrative film ever. She was one of the few filmmakers that even back then saw it as an art form and saw in it as like the next big art form for the world compared to a carnival hustle, which most people, even in the small film industry that already existed, saw it as. She did so many things. She directed the first American film with an all African American cast, A Fool and His Money, in 1912.
Wow.
She was a big part why feature films as a concept exist, because she always pushed for longer runtimes instead of few minutes, which was the standards at the time, just isn't enough to tell the stories that this medium is capable of. She directed and produced a total of over 1,000 films in her lifetime, most of which for the longest time were wrongly attributed to men. And even once that was corrected, in film history books, almost all of her work was considered lost. For the last decade or so, there has been a big push to restore her work by several like restoration companies. And now at this point, we have found and restored around 100 of her films at least. So there is stuff to watch, and I highly recommend checking it out. For anyone interested in Alice Guy Blanche, I can also recommend the graphic novel, which was made about her life, Alice Guy, the First Lady of Film. I've read it, and it's really fascinating. Like, she was such a powerhouse of a woman.
Very cool. I never even heard of her.
Way too few people know about her, and yeah, the story is so lost to time that I wanted to bring it up since we're already talking about lost works in film history.
Alice Guy.
Warning. The following program contains spoilers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
The Birthday is a 2004 film produced in Spain, but filmed entirely in English by Eugenio Mira. Whilst getting released in Spain, it never managed to get a distributor in the US until Jordan Peele rediscovered the movie in 2024 and gave it another theatrical release. It follows Norman, who wants to partake at his girlfriend's birthday party and finally meet her parents, when the strangest things start happening, from glasses behaving like rubber balls, the family interacting with him in weird ways, and ultimately a big underground organization being revealed who want to kill everyone at the party. I saw this a little before you, and then we saw this again together later. What did you think about this
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit of an odd discussion, both for the film being very odd and both of us having mixed emotions, but also for it just being the first time we watched the film in preparation together.
Yeah.
So we already were chatting about what we were thinking at the time of watching it, which is a different situation that I found myself in here so far. I don't know what I expected. It wasn't that. It's a wild movie. My first takeaway is I definitely see why Jordan Peele would watch this and be just in love with this.
Yeah.
Like this feels so core Peele. it absolutely makes sense why he instantly wanted to distribute this.
Oh, there's some Get Out in this movie for sure. Like even if he didn't know it, because he made Get Out before this came out or whatever for him before he saw it. But yeah,
and even like us, with this whole underground thing existing and strange parallel societies and stuff like that. A lot of Peele ideas in this. I think like our general experience with this, if I to say so, is that we both kind of love the first 2/3 of this, right? Like interrupt me if you disagree. But I had a lot of issues with the big twist around the 2/3 mark when this underground secret society kind of gets revealed to us. Like we see it briefly earlier before when a few men storm the birthday party and it doesn't really get elaborated on. But then it only comes back for this dialogue scene where we get a whole lot of just exposition dumping, and it kind of lost me in that moment.
So I think the first set of this movie is really perplexing. It's just confusing. It's not confusing. It's not confusing in the way where you go, I've lost track of what's happening and I'm not sure what they're talking about anymore. It's the kind of confusing where you go, is something happening?
Yeah.
Because I can't even tell if anything's happening at this point. I watched this with another set of our friends before I saw it with you, and one of them so eloquently put about 20 minutes into the movie, nah, dog, I think this movie's trolling us. And I was like, I almost feel like you're not lying. I couldn't even tell you if I really enjoyed the first 2/3 of this movie.
Okay.
Because it's so minute to minute up and down. When the first extreme thing happens, which isn't, at that turning point, when those dudes burst into the dance area and they have like the crazy sci-fi stuff, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Our friend had said that I think this movie's trolling us literally 1 minute before that happened. And then that happened. And it was like the movie had somehow timed it perfectly to confuse us just enough to where we were like, okay, this is not really, a thing. And then it does that. And then it goes back to being weird. And you go, wait a minute, is anything going to happen? What happened about? And then it does it again. It's like it does a really good job at keeping you in, I would love to say suspense, but a state of fucking confusion, but a suspenseful state of confusion. So I don't know. I think I love parts of this movie. I think I hate parts of this movie, but I think they're literally minute to minute almost.
Yeah, that's interesting. For me, it is really this specific scene where it went downhill for me.
The exposition.
By the very end, it kind of recaptured my attention. Like, as you go closer and closer to the last seconds, it becomes more interesting to me again. Before that, it's really this same kind of sensation I get from, let's say, a David Lynch film, where it's all off. You don't fully know what's happening. You know something is happening, and you expect it to go somewhere, And you even expect it to go somewhere that you can't anticipate. Like, something is gonna like pull the rug underneath you, and just something is gonna make a total left turn. Like that was my feeling the whole time. I know something is going on, but it didn't annoy me or anything at all. It was really captivating. Yes, it's kind of jumping around minute by minute, and a lot of things get established. It's just in a way, by jumping around so much, it built up my anticipation more and more as to where this would lead, where all of these payoffs would come from. And with all of these things established, what's the bigger goal here? And I think that was kind of part of the issue why, when this big exposition dump happens, I was like, man, that's really like you're gonna be so cryptic about everything, and then you're just like screaming at me this enormous load of information. Like, that's not really a payoff to anything right now. it's I guess a twist. It's I guess a left turn, as I assumed there would be, but it's not really interacting all that much with the weird things that were established,
So I've thought about this a lot, right? And I think because I wasn't sure. I said, I watched you go, oh fuck, basically when that happened,
Yeah.
I think because the movie does such a good job of keeping you in this state of like not knowing what's really happening and, on the edge of your understanding constantly. By the time that guy does that exposition, you almost aren't sure if, even though he's just explained all of that, if that's really what's happening. Like, I think even you said, like, after like a few minutes, you're like, oh, that's really what's going on. It might have been the other people I watched it with, but like, he does the big exposition and then it takes a bit for it to then kick back in that that's what's really happening. You, I think, almost feel exactly what Norman feels at the end of that exposition.
Yes.
You feel, what the fuck? No, what? This isn't what?
Yeah.
And you can't believe it. You can't believe it. It's nonsensical, the things you just heard. This can't be really what's happening. This can't be really what's being said to me right now. And I think that there's something beautiful that they make you, the viewer, feel exactly like Norman feels at the end of that.
Yes. Yes, I did recognize that. Like, it feels intentional. It feels exactly like you put into his shoes. He is just as confused by all of this. And that's kind of what I'm saying with throughout this final third of the movie, then he, because he has no other options, kind of has to grasp with that reality he finds himself in, and tries to make the best of it, tries to understand what he can understand, tries to convince the people around him of the weird things that he got told, that he supposedly knows, but doesn't really understand himself. And the way they
that's kind of where you are as the viewer.
Exactly. And the way they pull that off and build it up, that makes sense and is the exact experience you go through as a viewer, as you said. So I do appreciate that. It's really interesting. It's just structurally such an odd experience, because I don't know how much of that is intended. Again, it might totally be part of it, but due to it being such a volume of information given there, I was just flabbergasted and not even expecting any of that, and I kind of missed parts of the explanation. Honestly, like I don't fully
I think that's the idea.
Fully remember exactly what's going on, and it is the idea. In that moment of watching through it, it just feels wrong.
No, I don't know how many times I have told you literally like, oh no, I totally get what was being intended, but I didn't like the experience of it.
Yeah.
So no, like, I very much understand what you mean fully. That's really funny.
But it is kind of at the same time necessary, because what I like by the very end again is this realization of being in the same shoes. This, how his experience plays out like my experience plays out. And that's only possible due to that uncomfortable, I don't like what's going on right now, that's happening right around the 2/3 mark. So it's this. I'm really confused how to feel about this.
Yeah. I mean,
I think you also really put it well whilst we were watching it. Like I already mentioned, the first 2/3 feel like a Lynch film, and by the very end, it feels almost Gaspar Noé climax esque.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
in the in between, like right around the 2/3 mark and like 10 minutes after that or something like that, with the high pace and the lot of information about the world you can't really figure out, and it's way too confusing because there's so many informations being thrown at you. You made the comparison to 12 Monkeys, and that was so on point. That really is the same kind of experience.
Even visually, when they interject the travelers or whatever they are, the other guys, they have this, very 12 Monkeys kind of feel of them.
Mm-hmm. And that is another interesting part to this all, because I agree with all of these comparisons. And I love all of these three filmmakers and specifically those movies. Like I love Climax, I love 12 Monkeys. David Lynch, I didn't really think of one specific thing. Maybe Twin Peaks in the first.
It's very, I would say the beginning of this movie is very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like the
Yeah.
closest if you want to name a specific one.
I've been trying to really pinpoint it. For all the love of Twin Peaks and the weirdness, right? Twin Peaks kind of rests on this like specific type of Americana weirdness
Mm-hmm.
that's like almost like sitcom-y. The music is very Muzak, ridiculous, or whatever. Anyways, it has a very unique signature. And this is just so much, it's its own fucking thing a little bit. I was talking to somebody about how when somebody tries to be random, it's really hard to actually be random,
Mm-hmm.
right? True randomness is difficult, and when you try to be random, especially when like write a character that's supposed to be random, like say like a Harlequin or something, it can come off really cheesy feeling or very forced feeling. This movie feels like somebody has perfected what random actually feels like. And I don't know many directors who actually have nailed that feeling. Everybody feels like they're pulling from something. Like they said, like Lynch is always pulling from somewhere, and he's twisting that image into his abstract own ideas, right?
Yeah.
But this almost feels like it's, while you're watching it, it's so ingraspable because it isn't pulling from anything really, and it's just confusing you.
I can see that to a degree. I'd still say, like, watching this, I have a Lynch feeling whilst Lynch is pulling from somewhere. Whilst watching his more abstract movies, I always have this feeling of this all has deeper meaning. Like this eludes so
Yeah, that's
much,
fair.
but still feels super random in what's happening. You just, every little randomness feels like there's a deeper meaning that I can't fully grasp yet. That kind of feeling that I have like of a first Lynch watch experience, I guess.
The acting direction is very Lynchian,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Here it is kind of the same experience for me where, as I said, I constantly had this feeling of, oh, we're going somewhere. We're going to a left turn somewhere. I just don't know what it's gonna be yet. And that is kind of that same experience. But I do get your thing of like the randomness. My bigger point was gonna be with these three comparisons that I do love all these three things. Like I love 12 Monkeys as well. And that's the part here in this film I didn't enjoy. And I think it just comes down to structural setup. When I watched 12 Monkeys, and even when I watched it the first time without knowing what I'm getting myself into, it just is kind of consistent in this tonality. You start off from the very beginning with a character that is overwhelmed with the situation, that is put into a scenario where they are out of their depth, where they are out of control to a big degree, and where they have to rely on information given to them and just act upon it in the hopes that it was all right. And that's from the very beginning. So I'm never like pulled out of my experience. Here, it's kind of odd that we're 2/3 into the film. And it has been such a different, slower experience so far that's still weird, but I have gotten used to that kind of weird. And it's too abrupt for me to realize something is switching. And when it's happening, I'm already kind of out of it. You know what I mean?
100%. And again, I think it's a really great strength as to making you feel the main character's feelings, because I got the luxury of seeing this twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you watch this the first time, like Norman, like we said, you are just so taken aback by all this stuff that's happening. You're just this, what the fuck? What the fuck? How does this add up? Because you're viewing this movie through Norman's eyes throughout the entire time.
Yeah.
When you watch it a second time, there are so many, not direct, of course, nods to what's going to happen, but moments you go, I get why they're acting like that. I get why they're behaving like that. A mystery is unique because you don't know what it is. And this movie really flaps you with, you don't know what this is. You could look at all of the signs that lead up to it, and you still don't know what the fuck it is. It's a great mystery when you look at it like that. But on a rewatch, there's so many little things. The way the family reacts to him, the way that they're upset that she didn't bring the other girl instead of him, the way they don't treat him like a human being, basically. It's interesting. The way that the dudes who are partying there upstairs don't actually even know why they're getting to have a party. But all of that adds up then when you look at it in retrospect to the things that happen. But that's, it is wild. It is wild. It is like a big slap in the face of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I feel like on a rewatch, it adds it up. I think it really does.
There's a lot of interesting little things, little details that I wrote down that we also briefly talked about whilst watching it. At one point, they talk about the building and the building having this grand history of 37 years of existence, and that it's going to be torn down within a week. And I took that as maybe like the building is kind of a metaphor or an allegory for his life. He seems around like 30. If someone told me that this guy's 37 years old, I wouldn't be too surprised.
See, that's the thing, is I think again, that's why I like, on a rewatch, so many of the little weird things start to add up. I don't think that this movie is doing any allegories. I don't think this movie is doing any analogies. I don't think this movie is trying to play off any of that. I think the building is literally just 37 years old. I think he's just talking about how long he's gotten to, run this building, how long he's owned it, and this is the time it ends. I don't necessarily think he's trying to make it a grandiose thing like it's been so many years. I think he's just trying to say, I've spent 37 years of my life on this thing, which in a person's lifetime is a lot.
Yeah. Even if it's not like trying to say anything specific, it's still interesting that it's, as you said, for a person that is a lot. For our protagonist, that's probably around his lifetime. Like that's all of his existence that this building existed. So it still has that weight to it. More directly, all of the music kind of is interesting in this film, with lyrics coming up several times that relate to the things going on. When he dances with Allison at the party, I wrote down the song lyrics, "You must feel alive." In the elevator, we had that moment of trying to figure out what the melody was that we heard playing in the background, that little piano tune.
Yeah.
And until it hit me that it's a cry if I want to. It's my party and I will cry if I want to. Again, very directly talking about the movie. We both noticed a Prince cover being held up to the camera at one point, but we couldn't quite figure out which album or single it
I
was.
still can't figure it out. Yeah, he's got like a weird blue heart on it.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Some odd edition. I'm sure that also has like lyrics or a song title or something that, or a theme that kind of plays into this. It
Yeah.
was too direct. Like, there's no way that had no deeper meaning. It's odd because all these things feel like they should add up to this one grand reveal, and it's pretty much almost all of it red herrings? Question mark?
Yes. No. Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. That's kind of what I mean. Is like he focuses on some of the wrong things constantly because he, like you as the viewer, are not expecting what's about to happen. So
Yeah.
he's not looking at things like that in any way. What are some of the red herrings you've listed?
Oh, like things like the building age. Like, at least me watching this and feeling like, okay, this is very Lynchian. I need to look out for details. Then hearing a guy talk about this old building and specifically dropping 37, I was like, okay, old, 37 years of age, and the life is about to end. That has to have a deeper meaning. Like that's the protagonist in some way. How does this building relate to the protagonist? But there's not anything deeper than that to it. And it's also like it's specifically a birthday party. And like at one point, he mentions that it's, I guess, both the birthday of his girlfriend and his girlfriend's father, I think. At least, definitely, like two people from the family have the same birthday. And when he tells that to his old colleague, his old friend, who has the party upstairs, that guy makes a joke about the family all having birthday on the same day. So it's all connected with like this family, the age, the getting older, and the entire family pretty much dies, right? Am I right on that end?
I think so. I mean, we don't really know what happens to them after he does that.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe just his girlfriend was the building question mark. It's odd. It's an odd movie. I don't know.
I mean, I have no idea. I have really no idea. It's such a weird movie, dude.
After watching it a second time, did you get the feeling that you understood it a little better, a little more of it, understood the tonality better, or were you just as confused for any deeper meaning?
I mean, I'm not usually the type that deep meanings on films like that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that the deeper meanings are red herrings. I think that is part of the red herring. He is constantly searching for deep feeling for a meaningful relationship with the girl. And by the end of it, she's like, bro, we're not like that. Like, you not get this? And is very shallow toward him by the end of the movie, Like, I think she was like trying to break up with him was the whole point where she brought him or something. I think that's the same thing as the viewer as the character. Like, he's searching for something deep, but there isn't anything deeper there, except for, what's happening with the fucking, cult or whatever. He thinks that he's there to meet the parents. He thinks there's all these reasons for him to be there that are not the reasons he thinks they are. I think it's the same thing with the viewer. You look for all these little hidden meanings in the movie, but the real deep meaning of the movie is a cult trying to start a birth of a god, which is not what you'd expect.
Mm.
And my second viewing really just made me feel like that more, honestly, because there are so many things that I look back and I was like, oh, what does this mean? But it isn't anything. I think I'd like the bouncing of the glass. It's I think probably the first real weird thing that happens in the movie.
There's one before that, just like 2 minutes before that, when that one guy approaches him and asks for his coat. and act super confused by his confusion, that I'm not wearing a
Yeah.
coat. Why are you asking me for my coat? And then he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And goes up to the next person without a coat and asks for their coat. So
Yeah, that was funny.
that was the first one where I was like, huh.
Yeah, that's
Something's
fair.
going on.
I don't have a good explanation of that, but even those, I feel like they're red herrings because I can't, at least I can't find any deeper meaning of the cup, because he then just gets rid of it.
Yeah.
And he says, I've been trying to get rid of that whole thing all night, and he does. He just gets rid of it, and so it's like it didn't have any other purpose other than to draw you into its existence and the fact that he had it, and that yeah, I think it's all subversion to make you try to search more and more for what's happening, so you start trying to make deeper connections to be like, well, it must be this.
Mhm.
I think it's all red herrings. And I think it's geniusly done.
It's an odd experience. I struggle to fully love it without having any other explanation than it's a mystery for the mystery's sake. And I don't know what that specifically says about me, about my film tastes. It's just, yeah, it is an odd experience. It was
It
very
says you have to
mysterious,
have you have to,
but
you have to have meaning to love something.
yeah, I don't know. Because, like, there's no answer to it all that's like a satisfying payoff. There is no allegory that I could, or like that, at least to my understanding, to what I've seen, that I could relate to in an abstract way. Like, it's just a big question mark remaining from the beginning and to afterwards. And thinking about it, that question mark just stays intact. And I don't know if that's fully enough for me, you know?
That's super valid, honestly.
Does a question have value if there's no answer or reason for the question in the first place?
Okay, I'll throw you a deeper meaning, right? You're asking the wrong question, just like the guy asking for the jacket.
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
It's literally the same
Yeah.
thing. There's no jacket, man. I think that this movie will forever live on the same mental shelf for me as Skinamarink.
Okay.
It's not a movie that I really think I could ever pin a person for being like, oh, you'd love this.
Yeah.
But also in that, just like Skinamarink, it's not even really the content of the movie that's so great. It's what it does to you as a viewer.
Mhm.
In the way that Skinamarink, in my opinion, isn't a very good movie, but it convinces you, the viewer, to start making up images with your own mind and scaring yourself, and puts you in a really unique place via really boring, uncomfortable film. This movie really puts you in a place of confusion and misunderstanding and vulnerability for your ability to believe something by putting you through essentially a shit ton of red herrings, a lot of weirdness, and a lot of nothing that actually makes that much sense.
Mhm.
They're both movies that I think the experience of them is what's really interesting, but I would never recommend that experience to the average person.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me, I feel like just then, for my personal taste, then too close to a similar experience, like, watching a Lynch film, where I'm also confused, where there also might be red herrings, but I still get those, if not direct, then at least abstract answers in some way, and can imagine an answer in my mind, which I can't hear. It is like that little difference of, it's not just a question mark at the end of the day to me. And the rest of the experience is so similar that I'd rather go to that, I guess.
What do you think about this being essentially a real-time movie?
I didn't think too much of it. Like, I've seen a lot of kind of real time movies. Yeah, it's another one. It didn't even cross my mind. Why did you bring it up?
Because it's just interesting to me. There are moments in this movie where I'm watching it and I actually question to myself, has a lot of this scene been one solid shot?
Hmm.
The editing in this movie is just so smooth to me in a lot of places because it's done in real time, that there are many scenes where I just felt like I didn't even notice the editing. I just felt like it was done in a single shot, which
Yeah,
it's not. I don't think there is any really long single shots in this movie.
yeah, there's great editing in this. Like, the editing does a lot of the tonality of this film.
Do you think this is Corey Feldman's best performance?
I don't think I have seen too much of his, to be honest.
Because he does.
Yeah, he's obviously good in Stand By Me, but I think I'd agree of this very small selection. That's probably my favorite performance of his.
I wonder if this movie would have released in America, do you think it would have done well?
I don't think so.
Not even critically, but like, because there's tons of movies that are just critically not successes that are, huge with film fans that are cult obsessions, etc., etc.
I could see it be like a box office flop and critically mixed reception, and then over time growing a kind of at least smallish cult following online for sure. That's how I'd imagine it going down. I don't see this as like a big box office hit. I don't see this as overwhelming, critical response where everyone agrees, oh yeah, this is the new big thing or anything. But I can see it, DVD second distribution run becoming a kind of cult movie. Yeah.
Well, because I mean, to be the nicest I can be, Corey Feldman has not had a very kind past decade.
Yeah.
Um, he has had some really, a lot of problems over. I think he's got this thing called like Corey's Angels. It's got this whole thing.
Yeah.
He has some accusations against him. He also has accusations against other people for being raped as a child and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear to most people that he's been abused growing up and things like that. He's been a celebrity since he was basically a child, basically a tiny child almost.
Yeah. And it's very much the story of like getting assaulted as a kid and then becoming, victim to abuser kind of
Yeah.
situation.
Looks like since the birthday, he's been kind of making movies in other countries. So birthday's obviously Spain. He did a movie, a German comedy movie called Lucky Fritz that only aired in Germany. Find that for me, please. But he just hasn't really done anything of, a lot of note since then.
Yeah.
Do you think that this, if it come out in America when it was supposed to, that we would be seeing more Corey Feldman? Do you think those past 10 years would have been nicer?
Yeah. I think if, like, as I said, this became like a DVD cult classic kind of thing, then
Yeah.
some indie director, like 10 years after the birthday, maybe like around 2014 or something, would have nostalgia for him and for that kind of performance. And when writing a kind of similar character or something, or maybe even subverting it, would think of him. Like, I could totally see that. Like, it's the Pulp Fiction, John Travolta kind of thing, right? Like, I could totally see if this got like a little cult following, that after 10 years or something, this could have been the reason that he got like a comeback
Very cool. I mean,
with newer indie directors.
maybe, maybe he'll bounce back from this. This has only been really freely available again for people to watch for 3 months.
Mhm.
So, there's a chance that this could still blow up as a cult movie. Nobody's really talking about it yet, sadly. And hopefully some buzz stirs over this, because I'd love to see more of him. I thought he was fantastic in it, honestly. At first, his accent, I was like, that's a strong choice to make there, buddy.
Yeah, that was literally my first thought when I heard him speak. I was like, that's a choice.
Yeah. But honestly, by the end of it, it just felt so natural and like the dude's real voice. And it just, actually played really well. It's like the first time you see like Capote, and I know that that's what like Truman Capote kind of actually sounded like. You know what I mean when you see one of those characters and they have that kind of,
Mhm.
yeah. You've seen Capote,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, for sure. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Same kind of deal. But yeah, I thought it worked by the end of it. I actually really thought it worked.
I just found a super weird credit. He did some voice acting in Minecraft story mode. So like there was this weird time where Mojang released Minecraft campaign kind of games.
Oh, no, 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 no. Don't even besmirch Minecraft story mode.
I'm sorry, sir.
I literally had a conversation today about how ridiculous it is that they're releasing this new Minecraft movie when Minecraft story mode exists.
Mhm.
Way better of a movie plot. I haven't even seen the Minecraft movie, and I bet you it's a better movie plot. Did you play or see Minecraft story mode?
I never did. No,
Oh
no.
my god. They even show you how crafting actually works.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's like you arrange things on the table like a rune, and it like magically
Mm.
connects into those objects.
And Corey Feldman did some voice acting in season 1.
There's only one season.
Okay, it said season 1, so I assumed. Okay, yeah, he did some voice acting in the season that exists.
Yeah.
Unless you have some big final thoughts on the birthday, I would conclude this with my final little history of film restorations.
I think my final thought is just that what a sad thing to have lost, because I agree with you that I think if this movie would have released here, Corey Feldman would have done more acting, probably with more indie directors. I think that working out your trauma through art is such a powerful tool for everyone. And if you look at collectively the child actors who have really succeeded over being child actors, you know,
Mhm.
a lot of them have taken weirder paths in film. And they tend to work in stranger, weirder movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And Feldman didn't have that option ever. He didn't get to do that. And I think that if he had gotten to release it here, he'd be able to work out a lot of the things maybe that he's going through now. Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe he's just a damaged person. But I think that at least we've gotten some really, really good movies out of it.
Maybe we'll still get a renaissance for his career.
God, I hope. I hope he can bounce back from his music career.
All right, yeah, my final little story on like the history of film preservation relates to our current time. Specifically, thanks to the internet, there is a kind of uptick again with films being saved, films being available either through official means or unofficial means and archived in some sort of way. And specifically, I want to talk briefly about fan made film restorations. I only want to touch on it briefly, mainly due to a video essay that I adore, and that's kind of hard not to plagiarize almost when talking about this specific topic. It's the film essay The Bizarre World of Fan Edits and Restorations by Royal Ocean Film Society. It's incredible. Everyone should check it out. And I'm going to talk about my favorite little story from that essay, which is the story behind the film The Thief and the Cobbler by Richard Williams. Ever heard of it?
I know the story Thief and the Cobbler a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Often called the most ambitious animated film in history, it was in the making for like 30 years, with constant fighting for money and creative control. It went through the hands of various studios and was finally taken away from Williams in the process. It released as two different films by two different studios, one with the original name Thief and the Cobbler, one named The Arabian Night, neither of them having the original vision intact. Years later, someone called Garrett Neilcrest released the regobbled cut, which is like this Frankenstein together from a bootleg of Williams' original work print, restored 35mm footage of both released films, original storyboards and sketches that he got the hands on, and even animated material provided by actual animators who used to work on these films throughout the decades. It's probably the most ambitious piece of fan restoration in film history, and made fittingly for the most ambitious animated film in film history.
Wow.
If you find the chance, make sure to somehow check out the regobbled cut. It's really an insane project.
It makes me think of you ever heard of the documentary In the Sweatbox?
No, I didn't.
Do you know the Disney film The Emperor's New Groove?
Yes.
Fantastic movie. I don't want to hear any slander. It was originally really different and had like Owen Wilson in it and a bunch of other people. And they recorded all of those other actors' lines entirely, a whole film's worth. There are like 3 musical sequences for that movie, the original, and it's called like Montezuma the Sun King or something like that. And the movie's entirely different. And then halfway through the animating process, Disney was like, no, stop. We're going to rechange everything. And they gave the like animation team a really short amount of time to redo everything and rewrite the entire thing and add in other things. So entire bits of Emperor's New Groove, entire lines and stuff in the movie that actors are speaking were done years before and are cut with, David Spade in newer parts that were never even supposed to be, responses to those other lines and stuff. So there's an entire movie that's missing that we just lost in history. That's this animated film. And we just have like, sound bites and weird things of it left.
Yeah, sounds like a recobbled cut 2 in the making. Like,
Maybe
that was pretty much the situation with like the original concept of the thief and the gobbler. And
yeah,
that someone just figured it out and created it.
yeah. It would be really cool to see someday, but for the other, for the other one, I'm gonna look up the name really quick. What it was called, Kingdom of the Sun.
Nice. It kind of shows a way forward where, due to more accessible editing programs, due to technology in general just getting more accessible, and due to the internet and the way people can work together on projects like these, there is a way forward where we can save more films that were lost to time for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thought, I thought, to end on. In the next appointment, we will discuss 2 sci-fi stories, taking place mostly on a confined space station in an alien environment with Moon and Mickey 17.
Your first prescription is Moon. Directed by Duncan Jones in 2009, this film takes place on the dark side of the moon. We follow Sam Bell, played by Sam Rockwell, who's a cheap contract worker hired to take care of the Helium-3 production stationed here. His only contact is a computer assistant called Gertie, and after an accident occurs, however, their quiet solitude gets shaken up.
Your second prescription is the new 2025 released Mickey 17, directed and adapted by Bong Joon Ho from a book by Edward Ashton. It follows Mickey, who, after getting into trouble on Earth, makes the decision to enlist for an ethically questionable position in a space colonizing mission. It is Bong Joon Ho's first film since his historic success Parasite in 2019, and stars Robert Pattinson, Naomi Ackie, Stephen Yeun, Mark Ruffalo, and Toni Collette.
If you don't want to get spoiled for either of these films, make sure to check them out by next episode 3 weeks from now.
I'm George.
I'm Devyn, and this was Medicinema, your healthy dose of film.